Welcome back, everyone, to the wonderful show we call Sweet Shots Podcast. Lucas Johnson alongside Chuck Johnson and Mark Johnson. I think I switched that one up.
You
that
did?
time.
That's the first.
Yeah, Chuck
Thank
Johnson and Mark Johnson. There you go. Well, special guest in the booth today, Amy Olson. I almost said Amy Anderson again.
I answered either.
You get both of them.
I do.
Well,
some
welcome
people
in.
forget I was Anderson at one point. That was already 5.5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amy Olson, Amy Anderson. Anyway, in the booth. Welcome in. Thank
you.
In.
Thanks for having me.
This is pretty special for us. This is great. And we've been trying to make it happen for a while now, and we're glad you're in. So welcome to our little slice of heaven. So.
I appreciate it. I've enjoyed being on the simulator and in the academy a little bit. Now I got promoted to the podcast room. I mean, this is a big deal.
Right. You're on the 3rd level now.
Yeah.
That was first
I'm moving
level.
up.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're moving up.
Literally.
Wait till we ask you to pick the range.
Yeah.
Hop in the
I'm
Bobcat.
busy.
Okay.
Did that enough at 8 years old out at Oxbow. Maybe it wasn't 8. Maybe I should fudge the number.
Right.
Say I was like 14, 15.
Right. Did you hop in the picker out there?
Oh, all the time.
Oh, that's fantastic.
All the time.
Yeah.
Are you really a range rat kid if you didn't pick the range from time to time?
Agreed.
It's true.
Right?
It's true. I mean, I was Fargo Country Club. I was a little kid out there. They sent me out with like a rake and a couple shag bags. I was the one getting under the trees.
In the trees? I did that
Yep.
too.
Leave with $5 in tips, and they called it good.
At least you got paid, Mark. You owe me. The years that you owned the range as a range guy, but I did the work.
Back in the day at Village Green.
Yes. He would recruit me to help him. And then you were doing sports and other things. So I'd just do the range for you. I don't think you ever paid me for those range.
So maybe in golf balls. I maybe gave you some golf balls or something.
That could be.
But no.
Anyway.
But it's a treat to have you on, Amy, and your roots here in town, in our community, and what you've done with golf and your life. It's just amazing. So we look forward to visiting about some of those subjects. But growing up at Oxbow, I mean, you had right literally out your back door, right? Access to that golf course.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hole 12, if anybody remembers now, the old Oxbow, because obviously the course is a lot different now, but old Oxbow had number 12 as a par 3, and we were right on the green. Our yard was in shank zone. So if you were just playing in the yard, you had to be careful and you had to keep an ear out for 4.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, our grill got hit a few times. Yeah. The window got hit a couple times. I don't ever remember it breaking, but the nice thing is I remember waking up at like 6 a.m. when the grounds crew is like just out there and it's so quiet. I could go play 1 hole. I could go play 12, 13, 14, play 3 holes. Could tee off on 12 and play 9 holes, finish on 11. It was just such a great setup to like get interested in the game because you don't get dropped off at the course and you're stuck there for 3 hours as an 8-year-old. So I was just able to like kind of develop the interest and play as much as I wanted to and then go home and eat lunch, whenever I wanted. So great environment to be introduced to the game. Obviously have an older brother who probably was into it a little more than I was at first, but he inspired me and we competed. We still compete in everything. That's just kind of the nature of sibling rivalry. But fortunate to just have a really good environment and good support around me growing up.
That's awesome. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you were homeschooled, right? Was that through high school?
Yeah, K through 12, so all the way through high school. I didn't end up playing. I could have played for the Kindred golf team.
Okay.
That would have been kind of my school district. Opted to just play, tournaments in the summer, and that's kind of how I got noticed by different colleges and never really looked at a bunch of colleges. I graduated because of being homeschooled. I graduated at 16, so I was pretty young. Didn't necessarily want to move all the way across the country at that point. So, stayed in NDSU at that point.
I have a question back to your high school options as far as
Yeah.
playing golf, because I thought rumor was, or even
Our dad.
had expressed some interest in
I
the
love
rules.
rumors.
Yes.
I love rumors.
The rules would have the rules would have allowed for you to possibly even play at Shanley. Is that true?
You know what? I am not sure. I don't know if we would have had to pay tuition or taken at least one class.
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
know.
So Dad told me he talked to your dad about having you play for the team. He was like giddy.
Little low school recruitment.
Yes.
Love
yes.
it.
Yeah. Dad, he told me that once or twice.
Okay.
So whether or not he was just rumoring and
Yeah.
whatnot, but he indicated that he had talked to your dad about playing.
Yeah, I don't know what the rules were
Okay.
for that.
Okay.
You know, obviously you can play for your district. That's a rule in North Dakota. And then with Shanley being a private school, I'm
Mhm.
sure they have their own rules.
So back to that, being homeschooled, I'm sure there's many advantages to being homeschooled, but something like not being on a high school team. Do you ever look back and go, boy, I wish I would have been on a team, or did college check that box for you?
Yeah, I mean, I loved my college experience. So being on a team was really, it's one of the best things you can do, I think, in sport. I think there were things that I wasn't aware of because I wasn't on a high school team. So I remember looking back and like, I'm a freshman on the NDSU golf team, right? And I think that my opinion should be just as valid as the next person's. Oh, no. That's not how that works. Right? So I remember a few times when, coach might have asked, well, what kind of travel suit do we want this year or whatever? And I'm here, 16 years old, but 17 at that point, but piping up going, oh, I think and the seniors are just looking at me like, what is this pipsqueak talking about? So, there's things about like seniority. I had no idea about going into college, and I probably could have saved myself a few like foot in the mouth comments had I played in high school. So, I do, maybe there's some things like that I look back on and probably missed out on. And the thing is I knew everybody on the golf team at Kindred. They were all out at Oxbow. So
sure.
I still had the friendships and really liked a lot of those girls. And I had such good role models, that I looked up to when I was 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. I think of like Jenny Henderson, Gina Dahl, Erica Dahl. These girls were like 5, 6 years older than me, state champions, loved golf. And I just remember like idolizing them, right? And I think that's something that you can sometimes get from a high school environment as well, is you look up to the seniors, you have role models. And I feel fortunate that I still had that.
That's neat. And actually, when you look at it, the high school window, that season's pretty small compared to the...
Especially like Class B was in the spring at that point. I don't know if it's still...
They switched.
They switched now.
Yeah.
And anyway, that could be brutal seasons for sure.
Right. And the relationships, you touched on it, are made in the summer with the amount of time that you're at the golf course and traveling to tournaments with them. You did have that experience in a way.
Yeah,
for sure.
I did.
Yeah.
I ended up, just by nature of it, I ended up hanging out with my brother and his friends most of the time. Because when it came to the summer, the kids that were really grinding on their game and working on things tended to be guys. The girls were a lot of times at the pool and whatever else. And so I probably missed out maybe a little bit on that, but I had a lot of really good friends, and I love competing with guys. I love the trash talk that comes with it. And it's just a little different environment. So I love
What's
that
the age
too.
difference, between you and your brother?
Yeah, 19 months. So
19
we're
months.
pretty close.
Very
yeah.
close.
So that's
Okay.
kind of, my mom put us together in, she started my brother in kindergarten, and I just listened in and started reading kind of ahead.
Okay. Yep.
So she stuck me in the same grade as him.
Sure.
So going through like the homeschooling phase, like from a high school standpoint, you kind of get your foot in the door with all the sports and you find one you like, and then you continue on. At least that's kind of, I grew up in golf, but most people do it. Homeschooling, because you were on a golf course, was it just always golf for you? Did you have other interests where you're like, maybe give it a try?
Lucas, I wanted to play t-ball at 4 years old.
And
And my dad made me choose at 4, whether it was t-ball or golf. We're not doing anything baseball related, or we're not doing anything golf related. And obviously golf was the choice from that point.
At
but
4.
Yeah, at 4.
Well, I remember you coming over and playing in the father-daughter at the Meadows.
Yeah.
And you were pretty young.
Yep. Probably
your
8
dad.
at that point. I don't think I played any tournaments before I was like 8 or 9, maybe. But that was probably my first competitive experiences.
Think about that. Amy Olson, the professional t-ball player.
Right.
Hey,
Here we are.
Got a different ring.
No.
Different podcast. That'd be a little weird.
Yeah.
My questions wouldn't apply to that, but they were different.
So I want to touch on, the homeschooling and how that prepared you for college. You and your brother are both very smart.
He's a little
class
smarter than I am,
valedictorian. Like you won academic awards, if I remember, in college, both recognized probably at NDSU and whether it's NCAA. So obviously homeschool prepared you. Was college just that easy for you? Because it's not. You're juggling. You're juggling a whole new life. Now you're traveling for golf. You have those relationships with the team, and you have to study because that's why you're there.
Some might say.
Did school come easy because of the homeschooling experience?
So one of the things that my mom always prioritized, and mom was the teacher, dad always said that he was principal and in charge of Phi Ed. which he did pretty
Love
good,
it.
pretty good job with that. But anyway, mom always stressed, she's like, I don't want to teach you, just what to know. I want to teach you how to learn. So she was really big on not just pushing information into our brains, but teaching us how to get information.
That's great.
So when we got to college, I think one of the biggest adjustments, all of a sudden you have to go to class. Like that wasn't I mean, all of my high school career was done in my bedroom, in my pajamas on the floor, either reading a book and just gathering information, or at that point, like DVDs were starting to come out. There was some online, learning where you could watch a lecture. But I just remember going to college and going, wait, I have to spend like 5 hours a day in class or however many hours it is. Right. And then I also have to read the book, and then I have to. So truthfully, I went to class, but I would sit in class and read the book because for me, that's how I'd learned how to learn. Sure. So I relied heavily on just reading the book and gaining material that way, which was great because when you miss class for road trips, we're on the road all the time. I just would grab the book, I'd be reading it, and I wouldn't miss a beat just because that was how I was going to learn anyway. So I think maybe that was one of the things that helped me adjust to college. As far as like the class load and everything, my mom was the toughest professor I ever had. So, she had very high standards, which I appreciate. And it was always interesting to me in homeschooling, we would take a test and then she'd give me the answer book and let me correct my test, find out what I did wrong. And then I had to go figure out how to do it right. So when I would take a test in college, and then you wouldn't get the answers back for like 5-6 days, I was like, I don't even care about that anymore. Now I don't even, so I didn't necessarily, I didn't find that I learned as much from tests because I didn't get the chance immediately to go back and get feedback on what I'd done right and wrong. Mm-hmm. So that was a little interesting.
That is interesting. And I was going to say, so obviously it's a different schedule. So practicing for golf, right? Was there a priority in that in terms of like, whether your dad was a FIAD teacher, was FIAD golf practice when you could, or is it, how does that work?
Yeah. So I remember, and you're saying more in high school.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So like high school, I remember because my brother and I were like so motivated to get out to the golf course. And once the snow melted, we didn't want to be anywhere near the house. We just wanted to be out on the course. So mom used that as motivation. And she just said, this is the book we need to get done this year, whether it's math, whether it's science. When you get through it, you're done for the year. Yeah. So, come January, February, my brother and I were just cruising through these, textbooks trying to get done. That's great. I remember getting done on like April 5th one year. And all of a sudden, everybody else is in school until May 23rd or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, this is great. Yeah. I'm just out on the course all day.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So, my mom knew how to motivate us and knew what our interests were. So, she used that to her advantage for sure.
That's really cool. And so, before we get into your unbelievable college career, right? The amateur career before that was fantastic too. The highlight that I've got is the 2009 U.S. Girls Championship, right? You go on to win that one. Yeah. I would talk a little bit about that experience. Is that kind of when it clicked as far as like, okay, I can play with the best of them, I can be successful?
Yeah, I'll even go back maybe the year before that, 2008, I played in the U.S. Girls Junior in Connecticut. It was I remember actually Marilyn Barge. She was always such an advocate for me. And, you got to play in these tournaments and you've got the talent, you've got all, everything it takes. And so I qualified for the U.S. Girls Junior in 2008. And she was just like, this is going to be such a great experience for you. I had no idea where I was going to fit in on the national level. I'd played, local Fargo Moorhead stuff. I'd played some Minnesota stuff.
Like the junior tour. You've been doing the Fargo
That's right. Tour the elite FM junior tour and had won a few of those. So I was feeling pretty good.
What age would you have in 2008? So when you go play in this AM?
16.
16. Okay.
So it's later. It was, I just turned 16, like 2 weeks before it. So I remember going out there and having no expectations. I just assumed everybody out there is so far better beyond me. And so that was kind of like my mentality when I practiced. Like I never compared myself to people around here. It was like, I'm looking for perfection. Like what is the ultimate? Yeah. And so I had in my head, everybody was way up here. So for me, when I was able to go out there, I made the cut. So, 156 players, 64 make the match play cut. And then I won a match and I made it the top 32. I'm sitting here going, wow, I can hang with these girls. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, that was probably the first time where I got that little bit of taste on the not only national, but international stage.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I can maybe do this. And that was a huge motivator for me that year. So then following into the next year, qualified for the girls junior again in New Jersey and went out there and I was medalist in stroke play. So I don't remember what I shot. I remember it was just like downpouring rain. It was absolutely miserable. And I get off and it's like, I was the low score. And I'm like, whatever happens from here, I feel like this was a success.
good.
Like
Yes.
felt good. You know, I got my little like USGA gold medallion from that, like super cool experience. And I remember people, like I kept hearing things about, oh, you don't want to be the medalist. Like that's the curse. The medalist never wins, you know, and you always hear again, rumors.
Yeah.
So I just went into it and I was like, hey, if I win a match, great. Then I, you know, did what I did last year and just kept winning matches. Had some insane matches. Like one I was down 2 with 3 to go. I end up chipping in on the last hole to extend it into extra holes, like win on the playoff. I mean, like so many things fell into place that week that I just look back on it and I'm like, I don't know what the Lord was doing, but he was kind of probably just setting things up and just going, you can do this and I've got you.
Nice.
So anyway, you just never know what's going to happen. It was fun to put myself in that position and to have a little success. But at the same time, I also knew like that's the junior level. What I'm shooting for is the pro level.
Sure.
And again, in my mind, that's way up there. So I was still kind of just, how can I improve? How can I get better?
So at that age, and that's the question I was going to ask you, Amy, at what point did you go, LPGA, that's my goal. That's my ultimate goal. Was it back when you were a little
I
little
remember
bopper popping on Oxbow and playing? I mean, or what?
Yeah.
Or was it during that
no.
era where you go, boy, I can compete with them?
I remember the first time I watched the LPGA and I said, that's what I want to do, was at 10 years old.
Wow.
I watched Kari Webb hole out on hole 18 at the Dinah Shore at that point. To go into a playoff, she won an extra holes. And I was like, that is so cool. These girls get to do this for a living. Like, that's what I want to do.
Very cool.
So that was kind of the first time, like the dream was there. And I remember telling, because I told a couple people when I was, you know, that age, and everybody kind of like, oh, that's so cute. And I just stopped telling people because I'm like, they just like kind of laugh at you almost. And so I'm like, in my mind, I had this phrase and it was aim for the stars and you might at least hit the top of the telephone pole. You know, I don't know where I heard that, but I was like, why not dream big and work as hard as you can? Are you ever really going to regret putting everything you have on the line? Like, what else am I going to do at 10 years old?
Right.
You know, I mean, so anyway, I definitely had the dream at 10, but I don't think even I thought that it was a possibility till I was probably 16 or 17.
Okay.
So a little question on the detail of that experience when you went. Was Nathan on the bag for those 2 amateur tournaments? Or not?
Yeah, he caddied for both of them. Yep.
How special is that to have your brother on the bag?
Yeah. No, I mean, Nathan and I have had such incredible experiences through golf together. And I've caddied for him at different times and he's caddied for me. And I think one of the interesting things about our relationship is we're extremely competitive and there's nobody we love to beat more than the other person. But at the same time, like there's no bigger supporter, you know, than he is of me or I am of him. So, it's a really cool relationship. I'm super thankful. I mean, I remember 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, we fought like every brother and sister does.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, you don't get around that, but especially as we got older, I mean, truly just became best friends.
I was going to ask like what that relationship is like mid-round crunch time, because with my sister, I mean, I just tell her to shut up, don't say anything. And I think she caddied for me at the Birchmont the last summer. I was in AM and I shot 64 and it was like, just don't say a word right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know, Mark's caddied for me and there's been some disagreements on clubs and it was like, ultimately I made the decision, made the bad one.
Yeah.
And so, but like, what does that look like? Is there times where you're just like, Nathan, I just need you to be quiet. I'm going to play my game, or are you always welcoming whatever he's got?
Yeah. So there's 2 very important things that any caddy does. One is knowing the right thing to say. And the second is knowing when to say nothing. Right.
Yeah. Good point.
And the second one's way more important than the first one. Right?
That's true.
So, you know, he he just, because he knows me so well, he literally always knew. And part of it is like, if I want to talk, I will initiate conversation. So, he really knew kind of when to stay out of the way. And he also adapted, like he trusted me, but like if I wanted input, he was always there. Right.
Yeah.
So like we went through different phases where he would read my greens for me because he's an excellent green reader. So there were times where it was like, I trust your eyes better than I trust mine. And so we pretty much just went with his reads all the time. And then got to the point in my career where I was like, I've got to be trusting my own instinct a little bit more. And so he was like, I'm going to step away. If you need to call me in, you can, but like you go with what you feel. And then I knew he had my back. He had confidence in me. I didn't feel like he was going to be standing over there going,
Right.
Wish you'd have called me in on that one. I mean,
Right.
just even like just trusting that your caddy isn't second guessing you is so huge. And he's just always kind of found that perfect balance. So that was one of the hardest things for me. And we'll get to that, I'm sure, eventually. But on tour, Nathan caddied for me my first full year on tour as a rookie. And it was such a huge help for me. But the adjustment to finding a professional caddy was extremely difficult, and being able to articulate what I wanted, what he had done so well,
Right.
and I just took it for granted. That was a whole nother process.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you actually? I mean, do you interview caddies before you give them a chance to be
Right.
on the bag? How does that play out?
A lot of the caddy situation is very much word of mouth. So
Yeah.
like who's available, and you're talking to, there's usually like a couple caddies that are really in the know of who's available, who's looking for bags, all that. And so you'll get names and you'll talk to other players and say, when they were on your bag, what were your issues? Like, why are they not still
Really?
on the bag? Right. Because
Sure.
there's, and sometimes it's a stylistic issue of just, oh, they wanted to be, this, and I wanted this. Sometimes it's like, when we had issues, like they wouldn't listen to me. Okay, well then that's
Yeah,
probably a
that's
red
nice.
flag,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
So you do kind of references, I guess is the best way
yeah.
to say it. And then when you hire them, you generally just hire them for a week or for a 3-week stretch or
Sure.
something.
Okay.
Trial
Trial.
period.
Yep.
And the best thing that you can do is have written down, here's what I want, here's what I don't want. The more detailed, the better. They might think that you're like OCD, whatever, but like they better be okay with that because
Right.
you are the boss. And, the best caddies adapt to the player because every player needs something different.
Yeah.
Sure.
And really good caddies, that's like what they live to do.
So it's not like a written test where it's like
Yeah.
10 questions situational.
Right. No,
Right.
The
apparently
first
not.
ones, I just hit a tree off the drive, and now what club am I pulling? Am I going a hero shot or not? What are you guessing there? But that's really interesting. I mean, references for caddies.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
interesting. I mean,
It's
you see it.
it's
a
a
big one.
network
Lot
out
of-
though.
It
They
is.
know each other.
It
It's a
is.
small group really when you probably break it down.
Yeah.
So before we might get into our break a little early, but I think we're going to try and transition into the college career because that's, I think, when we started getting on the map, obviously 2009, but the connection or the community of NDSU around here. Talk about that, how that might have kept you in Fargo. You said you weren't looking to go far away,
Yeah.
but why NDSU?
Yeah. When I was kind of coming to that point where I was going to make the decision on where to go, a couple things factored in. One, like I said, I was 16 years old, didn't want to move a long way away. Was working with Dale Helm, my swing coach, who taught me how to play, from 12 years old. And so I wanted to be able to continue to work with him. So I knew I wanted to stay local, but that didn't necessarily automatically mean NDSU for me. I actually toured, I toured MSU, toured Concordia, toured NDSU, and honestly was leaning towards Concordia at a certain point. And as I just sat down and I looked at it, I was like, you know what? NDSU has some great opportunities. They did have, the sports bubble, which is where they kind of practiced. And I felt like the practice facilities, interestingly, the coach at the time was Lisa Schwinden, and she stepped away that summer and Matt Johnson came. So the coach that recruited me, I'd love to say like I went there because of Lisa, but then she wasn't there.
Yeah.
So, she recruited me and actually signed me and everything. And I remember her calling me in the summer and just saying, hey, like, I'm not going to be there anymore. And I was like, okay.
Was that her
who's
transition to
next?
Osgood or where?
Yeah. So
okay.
she went to Osgood
Yeah,
after
okay,
that
okay.
and was the head professional there. And Matt Johnson, who owned the sports bubble, took it over. And so we really were quote unquote freshmen together. That was his first year and it worked out great. I had such an incredible experience with Matt as my head coach. And we built a team that is still incredibly close knit.
Mm.
And yeah, it was a great experience. But it's funny because I look back on that and it could have been a coin flip for me as to where I went. A big part of it probably, I had a full ride scholarship at NDSU, and that matters a lot, especially if you're looking at a pro career, and you don't want to start that with some, student debt. So yeah, I made the decision to NDSU. Probably I'd love to think it was a really smart, wise decision I made, but I think the Lord just led me, and it worked out great.
That's awesome. So we're gonna get into our first break here because again, we haven't even touched on hardly anything we wanted to talk about yet, believe it or not. So we'll get into the first break, but after the break, we're gonna get into your NDSU career and then the pro career, which we're really excited about. Again, so thankful you're on here. So we're gonna take our first break. We'll be right back. Stick around.
This segment sponsored by Sweet Shots Snowball Scramble. February 11th, Saturday the 11th. Grab 3 of your friends. It's a 4-person scramble. Come on out. And we're going to play at noon. And we'll play 18 holes of scramble golf. Great prizes, food. More information is available on our website, sweetshots.com.
Should be great. We'll get the heaters cranking. I mean, tournament golf in February. That's fun.
Can't beat it.
The forecast is for upper 20s. So
That's perfect.
you're going
That's
to
what
want
we
to turn
need.
those heaters down,
So
actually.
20 degrees, no wind. It's like you're living in Miami out here.
Love it.
Perfect. Just perfect. So I know before we came back from the break, we were talking. Amy, you said this was one of the most disappointing days of your.
Well, not today.
Not today.
Not that.
Oh,
Boy, that sounded
Wow,
bad.
good
No,
save,
she
Chuck.
didn't
Good
hear
save.
Jeez. She was
The
ready.
day we're about to talk
There you
about.
go. Thank you.
Yeah, it was the day we're building up to. No. She was really disappointed today. She didn't want to come in. No. But the story we were telling, it was one of your most disappointing days in golf, right?
Yeah.
And it did have a relation to our family.
Absolutely. So the one and only Don Johnson
Right? Mhm.
and Carolyn, who ran the FM Junior Tour, had some stipulations around who could participate, and one of them was age related. So I remember at 11 years old, my dad made an appeal that maybe Amy could play in the 12-year-old division, even though she's 11, but like he swore up and down, like she's not going to get circle 10s on every hole. Like she can do it. She can hang with the 12-year-olds. And that rule was firm and fast. So my dad came home and told me, like, you're just going to have to wait till next summer. And I just remember bawling my eyes out because I just wanted to play in a tournament so bad.
Oh,
And this
no.
was my, there's not a lot of opportunities, in Fargo-Moorhead at that age. So
No.
anyway, that was a tough day.
That's tough.
Dad stuck to the
He
rules.
did
That was,
consistently. He was a rules guy.
well, he worked for the fire department.
Yeah.
More than 35 years in the fire department. If you don't have rules, people are going to, I'm not saying this jokingly, people could lose their lives if you don't follow the rules and the protocols. And that's how we
He lived
grew up for the most part.
So,
But you just
So,
told me
Amy-
the part that like I didn't even know or remember about this story.
So my mom, Carolyn, interjected it. This was recently we were talking about this. And she said, I remember this. She goes, I think she remembered it as you actually came to one of the events and you couldn't play because you were only 11.
But my
You s-
brother was playing.
Your brother was playing.
Right.
He was out on the course and you stayed on the practice area putting and chipping for like 4.5 hours while he was out there. And you consistently did that. And my mom swears, she goes, that's why she's such a good golfer. She spent so much time on the short game area.
That's hilarious.
Because
I don't
of the
remember
rules.
that,
Yeah.
but
Because of the
doesn't
rules.
surprise
No.
me.
Yeah.
Well, but that
That's-
goes to, you take something away,
Yeah.
it becomes more
Oh, you
valued,
want it
right? You
even
want it
more.
more.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And that kind of goes to being able to do what you've done while living in a northern climate. Now you had some access in the winter, indoor access, albeit, but when you remove yourself from the game for a little bit, when you do get that opportunity in April, when
Oh,
the
you're
snow
so
melts,
hungry.
Yeah, right. There's something to
Absolutely.
that for
Wow,
sure.
really bad. Yeah. So obviously a little different going into college because it's a year-round schedule, right? Was that a transition for you? I know it was different for me coming spring golf into summer and then 6 months of hockey and then golf. I mean, going year-round
Yeah.
when that's your only deal. Was it
Yeah.
that big of a change for you?
I remember and I don't know how well I remember it, but like in junior golf in high school, I don't think I never went to the sports bubble in the winter.
Oh, really?
So once the snow started melting in, end of April or May, that's really when I started up. And I remember putting the clubs away in September. So
Wow.
I had a long off season growing up. And now we did have a net in our living room with a big tire and a mat, which my mom loved.
I'm sure.
Formal living room, beautiful.
Yep.
Big old net.
Some people say no.
Swing circle, the old PVC pipe,
Yeah,
if
oh,
you
sure,
remember.
you had to work,
That
yeah.
was, so that was all in our living room because it was the only room with a high enough ceiling.
Okay.
And then down in the basement, we had a little putting green with, carpet that rolled at about a 10 or 11.
Yeah.
That's the important way to test carpet. I mean, most
Yes.
Right.
golfers know that
Right.
if you're going to go to, Carpet Garage, a little ad for Carpet Garage, bring your putter and a ball and see how the carpet rolls.
Yep.
Well, that's why shake carpet's not around anymore.
Oh,
Too many golfers. It's just like, I can't putt on this.
Yeah.
What is
okay for chipping, but
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you get a little corner of shake carpet.
So we had a little bit in our house that we could do, but like I would, swing maybe like 5 minutes a day. This was just more of a break from school. I want to, move around. So going to college and then all of a sudden you're playing until the end of October and then you start up again in February. So you're practicing in January. Now all of a sudden you got at most 6 weeks to 8 weeks off.
Right.
And that was way different for me. I started to realize like how grateful I was for the break that I had, growing up, because you just get a break from it. You're refreshed, you're excited, you don't get burned out. And I'm like, I totally understand why, like, I went and played US Kids at like maybe 10 or 11 years old. And it was our family vacation each year. And the girls that won that at like 10, 11 didn't even play college golf. They were so, they were so good, so young. But then they just got burned out.
Yep.
And I was like, I
Yep.
get it now. So I still prioritized the little break. When I was in college, I'd put the clubs away at the end of October, start practicing in January and give myself 2 months off.
Sure. Recharge.
Yeah,
Well,
for sure.
It worked in college.
Very
Yeah.
clearly
Let's
worked
talk
in
about
college.
your college career because I believe you're the winningest NCAA player, female player. That's probably male player, the most wins of all time. Would it be
That's-
male and female?
I don't know about that actually.
It's 20, right?
It's 20.
20.
Wow.
So on the female side, I can speak to that. Julie Inkster had the record before I did, and that was 17. So I remember I won like on average 5 a year, but like my junior year, we kind of found out about the record, and then that became kind of the goal, right? Is
Yeah.
beat Julie Inkster's record of 17, and I was at 15 going into my senior year or whatever, and I had second place. I had so many second places my senior year, and I was like, can you just get over this hump? And I think that was when I was like at 16 or at 17 about to break it. And anyway, ended up breaking it, and then kind of the floodgates broke loose and I made it to 20. But yeah, I remember that being kind of just like one of those things where, not that like whether your place in history or whatever, it was just a fun thing to work toward. And yeah, kind of a fun record to hold.
That's
That's
an
unbelievable.
awesome record. I
You ever
mean,
talked to
funny-
Julie? Did she ever talk to you
Yeah,
about
and
it?
then she asked how many LPGA wins I had.
That's good.
There's always something else.
Yeah,
right?
you can't trash talk someone that's,
Right.
a legend. That's
Right.
pretty tough. So
That would be tough. So, okay, so that was that's like record number 1, 20 wins in NCAA history. I mean, names in the record books, but NDSU records. So I'm gonna rifle through some of these NDSU records really quick because we'll see if it's really quick because there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of
So
them.
I'm gonna get through
LJ.
it. This is
Yep.
NDSU records. So start off, you've got the lowest 54-hole tournament. You got the lowest 72-hole tournament, which you're the only person to get a 72-hole tournament record on there. Is what I saw.
Oh,
on the
because
record,
of the
NCAA.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Yeah, because
lowest
all the other
72.
tournaments are three rounds, and the NCAA tournament is
Is
4.
four.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
So there you go. Only
Oh,
person.
hey.
Boom. So then you got the next record of individual tournament victories in a season, 5. You touched on it. You're 1st through 4th place in that. So it's Amy Anderson, 1st through 4th. Then you've got the top 3 and the 5th record in school history scoring average, 72.84, 73, 73.1, 73.96. And then Natalie Roth's in 4th place, another great golfer. I got to play with her for a year. She's at 73.55. So top 3 and 5th school scoring average. And then the biggest ones for me were your best win-loss percentage in your season. So minimum 10 rounds, you have all top 4 with .972 all the way to .948. And then minimum 30 rounds is 0.960. So those are all
I don't
to
even
me-
know what those mean.
So like out of
honestly.
100 people, you beat 96 of them.
Oh,
correct.
On
okay,
average.
gotcha. Okay,
you're-
gotcha.
You're beating
Yes.
96% of the people in every single tournament you play in.
Too bad we didn't get paid for that.
That's
You would think, right now with all these NIL deals,
Right?
you would- oh man,
Do you think
Missed out.
Would you have had an opportunity? Do you think you would have taken advantage of that
Oh, for sure.
with the
Yeah.
success that you
Well,
had?
and mostly, I mean, the Fargo Moorhead community is so close knit and
Mhm.
supportive. And so I remember like when I turned pro, the opportunities that I had in sponsorship, which we can talk about as well, like what that was like. But I had offers just waiting for me. So I imagine if it had been an opportunity in college, could have,
Yep.
maybe capitalized on those early. But, Heinz, I mean,
Right.
you never really know.
yeah,
You can speculate all day.
It's crazy. I mean, it was fun for me looking it all up and just, I mean, honestly, I left, I think, 2 or 3 other records out of there and your name's just littered all over it. And it's just fun to go back and
It's
look
remarkable.
at that and just see the success you had there.
Yep.
And I got to imagine the atmosphere around NDSU. I mean, that had to be a ton of fun too, right? I mean, being an NDSU athlete, I mean, athletes talk, whether it's in the workout room or in dining center, whatever it is. I mean, that had to be in a great atmosphere to be
Yeah.
around,
I
too.
mean, well, it started out, I remember sitting in applied calc my freshman year and telling someone I was on the golf team and they're like, we have a golf team. So I don't know how much you got that. Like, every once in a while you'll get that, but like really no one knew we had a women's golf team when I started. And then I definitely saw that change. And even like when I would be in classes, maybe my junior and senior year, and people would be like, oh, yeah, I know you, you're the golfer or whatever. So it was like, okay, things changed a little bit, even in that time. What was your question?
Just, I mean, the atmosphere around NDSU and how that.
Yeah,
kinda-
but my greatest regret, not greatest regret, because it worked out okay. But I knew who Grant Olson was.
I was going there. My next question
Oh,
was
when he was star linebacker,
Right.
captain of the team, he allegedly knew who I was. But we never spoke when we were in college.
no kidding.
Never spoke once.
Really?
not.
So yeah, the whole
What?
athletes talk and stuff. Well, not these two.
Really?
Yeah,
Because he's a
it was
record
interesting.
holder in his own. I think he holds the most tackles in a game.
29 tackles in a game.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
In
Which
one
is
game.
insane. Like I now watch when like his linebackers will be like, oh, they had like 9 or 10 tackles in a game, and they're like, wow, that was a great game. And I was like, you had 29?
Nobody
Like,
else
did
on the
anybody
field.
else
Right.
tackle
Yeah,
anybody? Like,
exactly.
were you the only one on the field?
That's amazing.
That is.
So
That is
then
crazy.
When did you guys start to connect then, if it wasn't in college?
Yeah, so he went out to Wyoming with Coach Bowl as a
Mhm.
grad assistant. And that's kind of when he started his coaching career. I was in my like second or third year on tour because I graduated 1 year ahead of him. And we just started talking over Facebook.
Oh, wow.
So we connected online and we were friends on Facebook because, again, like I did know who he was and he knew who I was. We had a ton of mutual friends, but we just never
So in
had-
college, you never connected.
we never
were-
connected.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he had written something about a missions trip he'd done in Haiti over Facebook. And I was just like, wow, that's really cool. I mean, faith's always been really important to me. And I knew of his reputation and like he led the team Bible study at NDSU and that kind of stuff. So I knew about him and I sent him a message. So he says I chased him,
There you go.
which isn't all wrong. But
Well, it's
anyway,
Well, I've had that opportunity to interact with him a little bit at the golf course at Fargo Country
Yeah.
Club, and what a gentleman! I mean, the way he interacts with us and the staff at the time at Fargo Country Club, and just a really he seems faith-filled fella, doing a great job with the NDSU football, and obviously he's a good catch. So you're chasing him. That worked
I married
out.
up.
Yeah, And that schedule that they have as coaches,
Oh, yeah.
that's got to be, the season's done, but I'm sure it's a whole different world of recruiting and travel. And how do you guys manage your time together with your schedule too? Is pretty crazy. Does he get some time when you are traveling to go to follow and be with you there, and vice versa? Do you ever travel to games?
Yeah. We've kind of figured out, I guess, a rhythm. And honestly, sometimes we think like it's probably better that we're both busy versus like one person being busy and
Sure.
one person, kind of just sitting at home waiting for the other one to get back from work. Like, but it does work. Like the last 2 weeks, actually, I was on the road recruiting with him. He recruits the Minneapolis area. So I went down, stayed with his mom because she's down there, and he would kind of take day trips and I would practice and kind of do my thing, and he'd be back in the evening. So we find ways to spend time with each other. He gets the entire month of July off. So he always spends a couple
nice.
weeks out on the road with me, try to make at least a week out at the lake together. And yeah, it's a balance, but I think the biggest thing is we sit down with our calendars and we're like, here's our commitments. This is what we have to do. How can we prioritize? And we say no to a lot of stuff,
Sure.
because it's just, you can't say yes to everything.
Right,
And,
right.
as far as we're both extremely supportive of each other's careers. And we know that they take a lot of time. But still our marriage is first. And if ever anything gets in the way of marriage, we're saying no to that.
Yeah.
So, you have that understanding and kind of figure everything else out.
Now, how's his game coming along? Because I know he had at the time a little passion for it. He enjoys playing, right?
Oh, he loves it. And he will tell you his equipment has gotten a lot better since marrying me. I don't know
That's good.
about his swing. You know what? I really am tentative in the whole coaching
That's what I was
endeavor,
gonna ask.
particularly with a spouse. And he wants me. He's like, give me drills, give me information.
Yeah.
I want to, he loves to practice. There's nothing more than, that he loves than going out to the driving range for an hour at night and just beating 100 balls. Like he just loves it. Unfortunately, I've already been out there all day. So I'm like, let's go play pickleball.
That's another subject I've got coming for you too.
So anyway, he loves it. And it's something we do enjoy doing together. And especially as a family, like we always try to make once a month where it's like my parents, my brother and his wife, and then Grant and I, we all go out and we play like 3-hole scramble, 3-hole best ball, 3-hole alternate shot, and just have fun with it. So it's something fun that like Grant didn't necessarily grow up with it and Nathan's wife didn't grow up with it, but it's such a part of our family that they've really embraced it. And that's pretty
cool.
fun.
That's good. So last thing I wanted to touch on as far as college career.
Oh yeah, we're still in college.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's what this show does. We get off on
Love it.
tangents. It's great. But the last thing I want, so you had the opportunity to play in the Curtis Cup.
Yes.
On Team USA, and that's USA versus Great Britain, Ireland. Is it still Great Britain, Ireland? They haven't opened it up to Europe,
No,
right?
right.
It's just still
GB
Great
guy,
Britain. Yep. So that was 2012, right? And you were the youngest on the team, I think, that year, right? It would have been.
Possibly. I actually don't. I would have to verify that, but I think you might be right.
I think I saw it because you.
I mean, they've certainly had younger players because, like, the Cordas when they played, when Lexi played, like, they're kind of the prodigies. But maybe in that particular year, I was,
But you had a winning record.
Yeah.
3-2 is what I saw, and that had to be a fantastic experience because you were over in was it UK or Ireland?
We
when you
were in
playing?
Scotland, the
Scotland?
north part of Nairn. I don't know.
Nairn?
Yeah.
That had to been a pretty neat experience over there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, just being selected for the team was a huge honor. I'd, having won the girls junior and then qualified for the US Open the previous summer kind of led them to select me, which was just honestly a huge honor. And especially coming out of North Dakota, I remember we had our Curtis Cup practice. So like the Curtis Cup is held in June, but we had a team practice in January just to like bring the team together, get everybody to know each other. And I'm like, January. I mean, I'm excited about seeing the warm weather, but like they might see me shank a shot.
Yeah.
Like this might not be pretty. So I remember going down there and I'm like, they are going to think like, why did this girl get selected? Like bunker shots. I was like, don't hit it in the bunker. Anyway, so I remember that I was like, okay, this is gonna be interesting. But by the time it rolled around in June, I was in good form and everything. But it was a really cool experience. We flew over there, landed in Edinburgh, and then we got to play Carnoustie the day we landed.
Oh, nice.
Which I was a little jet lagged, but I still just remember it being such an incredible, it's just, there's so much history there.
Absolutely.
Carnoustie is, and I now got to play it last year for the British Open. I mean, Carnoustie is really an apt nickname for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really the first time for me, I think I'd ever been out of the country. So just to kind of have my eyes opened a little bit, see the home of golf, see the history. That was just an incredible experience. And then the actual event was phenomenal. I mean, the fans over there are so much fun. I mean, they know golf, they're knowledgeable. and they're enthusiastic. They show up in droves. So
Wow.
being able to and there's like only 3 holes being played at a time, right?
Right. Yeah.
So like everybody
Yeah.
that comes out is just surrounding those 3 holes. So even like to this day, I'm like, I haven't played in many atmospheres like that just because it's so centralized. And I was fortunate they played me in all 5 matches, which is very rare because a lot of times you sit one of the matches, like you play either 3 or 4, and they played me all 5, which I was playing well. I always felt like I was a really good partner in alternate shot. I play very consistently. I hit a lot of fairways. I don't necessarily hit it super far, but I hit it long enough. And so alternate shot fit me really well. And some, so they played me in alternate shot, in best ball, and obviously your individual day. And it was a really cool experience. Wow. My family came over. Dale, my coach, came over. Matt came over, my NDSU coach. Wow. So it was, I just felt a lot of support and stuff too that week.
That's awesome. That is really cool. And you touched on it where you said that you're a straight ball hitter, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone hit it as straight as you. I mean, I've gotten the opportunity to watch it, whether it's around Fargo Country Club or different venues, but it is amazing how consistent you can be just through the bag. I mean, some people, they just love a driver. Some people, they love a wedge. But it seems like everything, I mean, it's like point and shoot for you, and it's so fun to watch. But with that said, talking with you earlier, it sounds like you're kind of working through a swing change, get you a little more comfortable over the ball. When you go through something like that, does practice change for you? Like, do you have expectations change as far as like, okay, instead of one shape, you're going for another? Or how does that kind of work with the swing change?
Well, it's so funny to hear you talk about that because I'm like, well, that's not my experience, but I see myself hit, every single shot. I'm like, I miss plenty of fairways. No, like I would say I've been through a couple major swing changes in my career. And each time it's been kind of by necessity, like when I'm playing really well, and I've played well with different swings, but when I'm playing really well, I do hit it really straight and I hit it far. The first time I kind of went through a major swing change, I was hitting it all over the world. I couldn't find a fairway. And it was like, I got to do something different. And it was really hard at that point. I was working with Dale Helm, and, he was here in Mayville, North Dakota. I'm down in Florida during the winters. It just was getting really difficult to be able to spend adequate time. So I ended up changing coaches to Ron Stockton at that point, and really did an overhaul on my swing. And then fast forward 5 years to kind of this last year, I'd lost a bunch of distance, wasn't hitting it as solid, kind of hitting the little, skanky, thin heely shot most of the time, which is not good for distance. And so I'm like, you know what? It's time for a change again. And anyway, so every time I've gone through it, like I've seen the need, like I haven't been performing the way that I know I can. So every time you go through a change, you don't always know what is on the other side of it, but you have to do something different. Right. So that's kind of how I've always walked into it. And swing changes are hard, like what is ingrained, but it's crazy because your swing changes like without you knowing it.
Yeah.
I mean, you all know this, right? Like
it
you show up
same.
one day, you're like, this is, I'm doing the same thing I was doing yesterday. And you're like, why am I hitting this shot? And if you extrapolate that over, months and months, all of a sudden these like weird habits get in there and you're like, I didn't try to do that. So then you have to like undo it. So
And that's what I'm fortunate enough to work with Mark, and he gets to see a lot of my golf swings. And so then when you do take the break for hockey, like I did, and come back, it was always, I got quick wrists because of the wrist shot. Yeah. But to me, it felt like a normal golf swing, or it's like sometimes through the progression of a season, I start standing too close to the ball or something, like little things like that where
you don't even know you're doing it.
Yeah. In your head, you're just like, well, this is the same thing. And then you show up and I'm, at World's End thinking it's the worst day ever, having a terrible range session. You're like, just take a step back from the ball.
It's hard though, so I caddied for him at the National Assistance Championship in November. Caddied. I couldn't. Anyways, they put some restrictions. Caddies couldn't ride the cart, but his bag had to be on a cart. It was the weirdest caddy job I've ever had in my life.
Okay.
It's the easiest. He was like 50% on showing up half the time.
Well, because I had to run to catch up to the cart. It was bizarre. But anyways, the driver left him somewhere. Practice round, it was all right. He was doing a little different move because I hadn't watched you play much.
Yeah.
And I have a question for you at the end of the story. I didn't watch you play much. first day you drove it all, practice round, you drove it fine. Last couple holes, maybe you got tired. It was November, so you hadn't played a lot of green grass golf. First day, the driver got a little squirrely, and it was a tough setup. So if you missed fairways, Bermuda grass, that you're going to pay for it. And then the second day, the driver really left you. And I just noticed something in your setup, but it wasn't something where I was going to jump in there mid-round and say, hey, you should probably think about doing this, right? And in hindsight, maybe I should have, but you don't want to get in your player's head at all. So we go to the range after
The day after.
we had lunch, or was it the day? I thought it was it was the same day. We had some.
Yeah, it was,
we had lunch
actually.
and a beer or two, and let's go to the range. And we got them lined up, and all of a sudden, bang, 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 and that's how fickle this can be, right?
Totally.
So my question to you is, for a time, I thought Nathan really had a great understanding of what you're trying to do with your golf swing, and when he was caddying for you, if that was true, did he ever like mid round, or was it more between rounds where he'd say, hey, you might want to think of this, or you're doing this? What was that like? Was that a fact that Nathan had a good understanding of your golf swing?
Yeah, particularly when I was working with Dale, because Nathan worked with Dale,
Yeah.
you know, kind of all through his college career and everything. So he did really know what was going on in my swing. I remember like a couple particular sessions, and it might have been like in a warm up for a round where I was like, Nathan, like, what do you see? Just tell me. Like, but he would never interject. I had to ask.
Sure.
So if I was like, I'm just like, I think I'm going to figure out a feel today that I'm just going to go with, like, he'd kind of stay out of it. But if I asked him, then he was going to tell me. After the round, he was always a lot more willing to be a little bit more vocal.
Yeah.
Hey, I saw this today. You just might want to try it. Or in practice, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, he would bring stuff up. So yeah, that's a tough balance as a coach to know, like, because honestly, a lot of times when you make a change, it gets worse before it gets better, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, just trying to like, okay, are we just trying to play with what we got today? Or are we going to try to like make this change? The thing that I found, and this is even a transition from like college to professional, because in college you play, maybe a 2-day tournament, then you've got a week and a half off, and you play another 2-day tournament. On the LPGA, you're playing 3 weeks in a row, and you're playing 4 out of 7 days. One of them's a travel day. So most of your rounds are competitive, and you only have a couple days to really make changes. So you all of a sudden have to be making changes during tournaments.
Yeah.
I was not used to that at all.
Yeah.
So like I had to go from, like, I would kind of cycle through swing thoughts and stuff. Like in college, like I knew stuff that I couldn't play with, and I'd do those on like off weeks. Then I would get to stuff that I'm like, okay, I can play with. I'm just fine tuning. And then I would have nothing in my brain during a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do that when you're playing, 25 weeks out of the year, 4 days out of, so yeah, that was another adjustment.
That's crazy. And I cannot believe that we're already up against the clock. Right
Well, I'm
now.
wondering if you're up to some bonus time.
Let's do it.
Because there's still some subjects we
Let's
have
do
to
it.
cover. Are you okay with
Yeah.
that?
Little part 2.
Yeah,
Yeah, we might
absolutely.
turn this into two podcasts.
We might. Who knows? Okay, we got I can't believe we're already here again. But yeah, we got to take another break, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back from that break. Amy, it's just tremendous how much information that we're trying to cover today in one sitting. You said you got to be somewhere by 1 o'clock, and it's like, oh boy, we got to get through this. And it seems like in the break we talked about more stuff we wanted to bring up, which is crazy how that happens. But Mark, you
just
wanted to
quickly
touch on
before we transition to the professional, one event that I had an opportunity to watch you play in was the Pine de Palm, which is amateur tournament, huge amateur tournament in our area, where it's traditionally it's been a men's tournament, and you walked in there. When was that again? This was in your
I'm
career.
trying to remember this. So this was right before I entered college. So it's like in August, like early August.
young.
And I entered college 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. So I was
You had
just
to be
turned
16.
17.
Yeah, I
I
was
had
gonna say,
just
okay.
turned 17.
Wow.
And I think, because that's another one, I'd been waiting for that age. I played the Ironman tournament,
Yes.
that's always like alongside it. And everybody's waiting to turn 16 so they can play the Pine de Palm. And I don't think I played it at 16. I probably had a conflicting event somewhere, but played it that year. And I think I was the first girl to qualify for championship flight at that time, which that was my goal. I wanted to qualify for championship flight. And So that was pretty cool to accomplish that.
Wow.
And
It's a great tournament. I love it, and it's so fun to just watch the level of competition that comes through there. And I think, personally, just having watched again, I think that course fits your game really well. Right?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I don't know how sometimes the guys feel about it because it takes driver out of the long hitter's hand, right? So I remember like stepping up on what's the one kind of down the hill dog leg right? Is it hole 5?
6.
6?
6.
Yeah.
I saw you hit driver.
And
there.
I can hit driver there, and everybody else is like hitting a little squirrely hybrid or like trying to, hit something. And I'm like, I can just stand up here and blast a little cut driver. And so it's a fun course for a female to be able to play and compete with men without playing at different tees. So, I mean, the course is such a great setup for that.
And how far did you make it?
I made it to the semifinals.
Wow.
Semifinals,
Yeah.
and you lost to
Tom Hoagie.
Did you really?
Mark, you knew
Like
that?
7 and 6. I got throttled. I remember it was raining so hard that day. So you're getting no roll.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now I'm hitting like 7 iron and 6 iron in, and he's still hitting wedge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm getting a little of what I was given the last few weeks, because that was right after I'd won the girls junior amateur.
Yeah.
I'd played in the women's amateur, and then had a good run there, and I was like, okay, buzzsaw. But not a bad name to lose to.
No.
right.
That's amazing.
And I
Pretty
enjoy.
cool.
I went out there and I watched you play a couple days, and I do specifically because I didn't watch you play for a long time. And you hit driver on 6 and you knocked it on the green. I'm like, okay, that's legit.
Well, you know what I will say, like one of the things I remember about that week, because you never know, anytime you kind of do something a little bit different, you're a girl playing championship flight, whatever, you don't know how everybody's going to react. I have to say the guys were so great to me that week. Like they all took it with such like lighthearted spirit, and they're just like, I don't want to be the only one to lose to a girl, so I'm rooting for you in the next round or whatever. Anyway, it was so fun, and like honestly, I felt like everybody was rooting for me. Like I felt no ill will.
Cool.
It was such a fun experience. Probably one of my favorite weeks I look back on. I can't even remember if I've played like what other local tournaments I played since then. I mean, they all were guys. I played the KX4
North
and
Dakota
then I
Open.
played the North Dakota Open. I just haven't had opportunities, obviously, to play locally. So I think that was one of the best things, was it's like I got to play in front of some family and friends
That's
that,
fun.
don't have the opportunity to travel and see me.
Yeah,
That's cool.
That's awesome. So jump into your professional career. Professionally, what was your first year on tour?
2014.
14. Okay. And that went from college, you went to qualifying school?
I went to Q school so I graduated from college spring of 2013, went to Q school fall of 2013, and then I was a rookie starting in January.
And there was you didn't have any status from your college?
No, I went all
achievements?
the way back to first stage of Q school in Palm Springs, had to make it through first stage, second stage, and third stage. And I think I finished 4th overall in the final stage of Q school. So I had really good status because like it goes 1 through 20 in that order from Q school. So like finishing higher is actually an advantage. So I got right away into the first event of the year in the Bahamas.
Wow.
And some of that to make it out there, I guess I follow the men's game. We follow men's game a little closer than the ladies, but to have those opportunities, to get as many opportunities as possible. And then when you do have those, you're going to play well for a certain period of time. And you parlay that into whether it's money or more opportunities, right? I mean, you just have to take advantage when you're hot and playing well. You got to run with it.
So much about timing.
Yeah.
There's so many people that have that ability, and it's all about, are you playing well on the right weeks? Because going out and shooting 64 on an off week doesn't do anything for you, unfortunately. Maybe give you a little confidence, but everyone's going to have, it's a roller coaster. I mean, your success is never just a straight line, right? Yep. And so if you can play the big tournaments when you're on a little bit of a high, I mean, that's a huge difference in your career.
Did you find your success in that junior amateur prepare you for the majors? Because I think there was a major that you played maybe in college maybe
yeah,
the
I
Women's
qualified
Open
for the U.S. Women's Open
in Denver or in
my
Colorado,
junior year. Yeah, at the Broadmoor in
where you had
Colorado.
some success.
Mhm.
Did some of that success that you had as youth, I would imagine, it did prepare you for some of that major golf professionally?
I think part of it is just the confidence level of going out there, and you don't necessarily feel like you have to prove anything because you kind of already did. So you play with a little bit lighter of a weight on your shoulders. I would say that's the big difference. But when it comes down to performing at a major championship, it really comes down to your skills. All of like the US Opens are set up so that you have to hit it straight. If you hit it long, that's a bonus, but you have to hit it straight. And you really have to be able to hold greens. One of the challenges for me coming from college to the tour was like, I was hitting like this little low draw. That's kind of how it was super consistent, but I'm hitting this low draw that just doesn't hold the greens. And I had to change my ball flight because I'm like, I got to hit it higher and I got to be able to hit a cut to be able to get it closer to some of these holes. And so like at the Broadmoor, the first 2 days I played really well, and I was hitting it straight and it was soft. And then all of a sudden it started firming up on the weekend, and I was like, oh, what do I do? Like, I don't have this shot.
You didn't have that shape shot or trajectory that you needed.
And that stuff you don't like. I would have never known that was such a big deal until I was in the situation.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And I thought for a while that was kind of, I don't know if you and I had talked about that or if I read an article where you kind of looked at a year back and you went, you know what, my proximated hole wasn't what it should be.
My rookie year, I had one top 10, and it was in Hawaii where it's super windy.
Mm-hmm.
So like my ball flight and my game favored windy conditions. Imagine that being from Fargo, North Dakota. And I didn't have what I needed for other courses. So that was that's part of just the evaluation and adjustments you have to make at every level that you kind of move on to. And you have to be willing to take some risks.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have anybody take you under their wing when you got out there, and somebody that kind of showed you the ropes a little bit, or was it just kind of, I had to
You are
find it yourself?
really on your own. People, like, don't get me wrong, everybody is phenomenal. Like, you go ask, I could have sat down with Kari Webb. Stacey Lewis was my kind of big sister on tour, and I asked her, just a few different questions, and I honestly take more of advantage of it now than I did as a rookie. Because, as a rookie, you're like, oh, it's Stacey Lewis, and she's probably really busy. She was #1 in the world at that point. Wow. And so, like, she's not going to want to tell me about her putting drills, and anyway. So, like, now I ask people all the time, and I'm like, what do you think about when you're doing this? And honestly, people love to talk about it, but a lot of times we just don't ask because we're in our little kind of bubble. It's an individual sport. That's kind of like the way our mindset is. So I wish I'd have taken more advantage of that early. Yeah.
Yeah. I got a bunch queued up. I don't know if you have another.
I'm gonna turn it over to you. You got to get through a couple.
Yeah,
of
we got to
here,
get through a few. Fast forward 2014 to 2018, the Evian Masters, right?
Yeah.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah, Evian Championship.
Evian Championship.
Yep. Once it became a major, it was the Evian Championship. Yep.
You found yourself playing well. Talk us through that experience.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, Nathan was on the bag.
Okay.
So my, I believe it was right around the time where my caddy had found out she had MS. So she's periodically has to go do treatments, and she needed that week off. And my brother was more than willing to fly to France and caddy for me. Wow, imagine that. So anyway, he was on the bag, and I just remember I was striking the ball really well that week. My irons were just on. Evian is set up where you never have an even lie. So it's built on the side of a mountain, ball's either above your feet or below your feet, or you're on a down, and really it's just pretty much above your feet or below your feet, the way the holes go back and forth. So ball striking is of the utmost there. And it's also a very strategic course, because if you're going to miss a green, you want to be on the low side of it. It's on the mountain. Sure. So you want to be chipping uphill. If you're above the hole, good luck. So like I'd played it a few years. I knew where to miss. And I really had good control of my misses pretty much all week. And so, really probably one of the best 71 holes of golf I've played in my life. Yeah. And no, so like I remember the final day, I think I had maybe a 2-stroke lead going into the day, if I'm remembering right, and played pretty solid. I was a little shaky, like on the front 9, had a couple like, you know, pars that I saved, and then, you know, maybe like a bogey that I saved from being a double, and maybe had a birdie here and there. So I'm like pretty much even on the day going into the final hole. And the final hole, I mean, it was a par 4 that year. Every year since, it's been a par 5.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's really a terrible par 4, but anyway, that's off track. I'll tell you how I really feel
can
about
we back
this.
up?
Yeah.
Is this the first major that you've probably been in that position?
So
2018?
earlier that year, I was in the final group at the Dinah Shore A&A. Now it's the Chevron Championship. So the one out in Palm Springs.
Yeah.
I'd played in the final group.
Was that with
And-
Stacy Lewis?
No, it was with Pernilla Lindbergh, and
Okay.
Pernilla won it that year. And I didn't have a great Sunday.
Okay, I
played
remember
very
that.
mediocre. Finished top 10. Had like birdie finish to finish in the top 10.
Yep.
So didn't play great, but was interesting to be in the final group and just see what that environment
Sure.
was like.
Yep.
So I'd had a little bit of experience with it, kind of just like sleeping on. I didn't have the lead, but I was really close to the
Yeah.
lead, and I was in position.
So fast forward, now you're on your 72nd hole. One of the most terrible par 4s probably in
Yeah.
LPGA Tour
totally,
history, or
totally.
major history.
And truthfully, that particular, I mean, again, like I said, I really hadn't been in that situation a lot. So like I remember at the first major of the year where I was in the final group, I'd watched leaderboards all day. And I found myself being like too caught up in it. Where am I at? Whatever. So I had told myself, I'm not watching the leaderboard. I am just going to stay in my game, stay mentally disciplined. And anytime I which is hard to do, like you have to be careful, like where you stand, because there's leaderboards, whatever. So I just made up my mind. I'm not going to look at a leaderboard all day. And so I didn't, and I didn't know where I was standing on the 18th tee, to be honest. So
Did Nathan?
Nathan did.
He did.
Yep. And had I wanted to know at any point, like he has the information.
Sure.
So all I had to do was ask. So I pull my drive left, and I'm like it's like a grassy, you're like on a pretty severe hill, really thick grass. And I'm like sitting there going, I have no option other than to chip it sideways. So chip it sideways, and it doesn't get out of the rough. It kind of stays in there. So now I'm standing there going, I'm like an 8 to 7 iron away from the green, over water.
Mm-hmm.
Do I go for it? Do I not? Now I need to know what position I'm in.
Yeah.
So I asked Nathan, I'm like, what do I have to do? And he's like, you need to par to win, bogey for playoff. Okay. So I'm like, I gotta go for it. So I pull out my 8 iron because I'm like, I'm just gonna swing as hard as I can at this thing. And it was honestly one of the best shots that I think I've hit under that kind of pressure. And it lands front middle of the green and doesn't release.
Yeah.
And it just stays
Out
on
of
the
the rough?
front,
Out
out of the rough.
How does that work?
I'm like, I have no idea how that happened. So, and the green, it's going toward the lake. So it really should be fast that direction. Anyway, so it stayed on the front half of the green, and my putt, because it kind of slopes away, I hit it a little too hard. So I had like an 8-footer coming back, and I missed it, and then, so Angela she had finished maybe a group ahead of me or whatever. So she ended up, I didn't even know, like once I got done, I knew I didn't win. I had no idea who won. I had no idea who was in second place. Like I truly did not watch a leaderboard all
Didn't
day.
she play a great round of golf?
So it was
maybe
interesting because I remember hearing she doubled hole 16, which 16 is a brutal little par 3. And she doubled it, and it was just distraught, but came back and either birdied 17 or maybe went birdie par. And anyway, so like she fought back from some adversity too.
So something like that. What's your personality? How do you take that? Are you use that hopefully as motivation? How long does that sting stay with you? Do you let it go after dinner, or is this thing linger to the next event?
Oh, that one lingered. That one lingered a lot longer. But, definitely to use as motivation. I think like a couple ways to think about it. And, part of it is encouragement that your game was there.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And the ability was there. And like, every part of you wants to finish it off. And I'd be lying if I said it doesn't still sting. Like to be able to say like major champion, yeah, I'd like that. But at the same time, like I will say in my life, like the thing that has carried me through, whether it's success or adversity, it is faith and it is perspective and like what matters in the eternal. And it's not your accomplishments or your accolades. It's really like your relationship with God, your relationship with other people, and how you treat people and how you handle these things, your character. So for me, it's been one of those things where I'm like, you know what? Yeah, that was really hard. Would I change? I wouldn't change a thing that I did on hole 18. I wouldn't hit 3-wood off the tee. I would try to hit a better chip out, I guess. I mean,
just execute.
But it was just execution. So I don't look back with any regret on something that I could have done. And so it's just a matter of you just go work harder, you know?
Well, and I'm glad you touched on it. We're all Christians here and we're all faith-filled people. And the next, fast forward again to 2020 and that US Open. And I think the whole country, the whole world watched that event and was witness to just that to me, it transcended golf. And I think you probably even spoke to that post round. And for those listeners that weren't aware, or what we're talking about is, just tragically, Grant's father, is it Lee?
Yeah.
Lee passed away suddenly.
Yeah. Saturday night. So
of the tournament.
Of the tournament, right. So of the US Open. So interestingly, this was during COVID, right? So our US Open, which is usually in July, is played in December this year during COVID because everything got pushed, right?
Sure. Right.
So I'm teeing it up in Houston, Texas in December, and I can't and Grant didn't have a fall football season.
Right.
Because of COVID. So they played in the spring, right?
Spring.
So he was able to come down for the weekend. So he flies down, he shows up Saturday, watches me play Saturday, I have a great round. I think again, I don't even remember these things, but like I was either tied for the lead or like one back going into the final day.
Well, you had a hole in one the first day.
I had a hole in one the first day, which was
in
fun.
a US Open.
In a US Open, I'm like, okay, we're good. And then Grant flew in on Saturday, and anyway, so long story short, I finished my round on Saturday. We go back to the hotel. I picked up dinner on the way to and he was already back at the hotel. And I walk in, and for the first time in our marriage, I'm seeing him crying.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, something is very wrong, because like that doesn't happen very often. And so anyway, he just tells me that, his dad had a heart attack and it's on the way to the hospital. So we are just waiting to hear any sort of update. So so Saturday night we find out that he didn't make it. And I mean, talk about just the longest night. And I mean, the last thing I'm even thinking about is the fact that I have to tee it up the next day. So we kind of sat through, we got up Sunday, make our way to the golf course, and it happens to be just pouring, rainy, stormy.
Yeah.
So we actually didn't tee it up on Sunday, and we had a whole nother day and finished it on Monday. Grant ended up flying back on Sunday, so he didn't see me finish. One of those things, there's never a good time for tragedy to happen, but dealing with that, like kind of in the public eye, and you're in contention. So every media source is trying to find out what happened. You're just like, we just want to grieve privately. Like that was a really, really difficult thing to walk through.
Yeah. I really, none of us can imagine that other than if you go through that. Was there, was it encouragement from Grant to say, hey, you need to finish this tournament? Did you ever think about, maybe I should withdraw? And were people like judging you whether or not, she stayed and played? Or
we really tried to keep it as quiet as we could on Sunday. And Grant and I talked through the different options, and he's like, Lee would want you to play.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was what we heard from his mom, from his brother, like everybody that honestly at that point mattered to me, their opinion all said to play. Yeah. So I didn't even have to think about that.
Yep.
So anyway, that really wasn't in the question. The real question was whether Grant was going to stay and watch me, or if he was going to be back. And I just told him, like, I want you back with your mom. Like I'm okay, but that's where you need to be right now.
Right.
And so that was kind of the major decision. And yeah, like Monday, it was one of those things where, again, like mental discipline, I was like, I can't even think about what's going on at home. I can't think about, like, if my mind is going to go there, I had like replacement thoughts, what I'm going to think about instead.
Didn't you sing on the golf course?
Yeah. So I had a
Wasn't it?
song I was singing. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
singing Josh Groban, You Raise Me Up, which
Oh, that's-
ironically is the same song I had in my head when I won the girls junior back in 2009.
And it just came to you.
And it just
on the
came to
golf.
me.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was,
That's a powerful
Um,
song.
yeah, it is.
And at that time,
It
that's
really is.
Hmm.
So, yeah, just one of those that honestly, the Lord carried me through and helped me hold it together and do what I did. I mean, I honestly, even now, I'm like, I can't imagine if I had one. I don't know if I could have handled that.
Yeah.
Mm.
That would have been, it would have been two such extremes of emotion.
Yeah.
right.
It'd be like, I truly don't believe it was meant to be.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So we get into that final round, and I don't know, were you stroke back or leading?
I think I was a stroke back going into it, if I remember right.
But definitely in the final.
Yep,
You're in the
I was in
final
the final
pairing
group.
and all that stuff.
Yep.
And I had the lead.
At the turn.
At the I was going to say
Mhm.
at time. So I'm sure there's way more to it than this, but the one hole that I remember, that golf is such a fickle game. You hit a shot on 16. It was a par 3, and it
Oh,
landed.
yeah.
It seemed to land right where it should, and it just released,
Mhm.
and it ends up just U.S. Open rough, and you don't get it up and down. You're
Right,
probably going to
right.
only get that ball up and down maybe half the time, anyways.
Mhm.
Do you remember that hole?
Yeah.
Because you hit it.
Yeah.
You hit the shot you had. To
Oh,
hit.
I had 187 yards to the flag. I am right in between a 5-iron and a hybrid. But a 5-iron, I have to hit a low draw with, like a just power draw, because it's cold as well.
Yeah.
Remember, we're like
Was it a back?
55.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 50 degrees. Like I am in so many layers, stocking hat, vest, gaiter, like the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's not the shot because it's tucked over a bunker. So I'm like, I got to hit a super high cut. This is like literally what I've changed my game for, right? A really high cut hybrid. And it lands right where it has to, but it's firm, lands on a little bit of a downslope and shoots over the green. So, I mean, I look back and I'm like, I hit such a good shot there,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
don't know what else I can do.
Yeah.
Again, that's what I'm just like, I don't think it was meant to be. Like
Sure.
it nestles up right against one of those little patches of Bermuda where you can't get on the back of it. And everywhere else there is bare, and it's like right on this little patch. I'm like, okay. And yeah, didn't get up and down, but truly, like I look back at that round and I'm like, I started very poorly. Like I think I started par, bogey or something, and then had a string of birdies, brought it back. I'm like, that was one of the best rounds of golf I've played in my life. And Alam Kim, who ended up winning it, finished birdie to beat me by
That's
one.
amazing.
That was right.
Yeah.
I birdied the last hole. Like, there's just one of those, like you did everything, you laid it all out on the table, and
Wasn't meant
she
to be.
finished better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had perspective afterwards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly
Yeah.
what you said, and of course you're going to be in that situation, losing a loved one.
Yeah.
That ultimately what I'm doing here.
Talk about putting things into perspective.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Absolutely.
For sure.
So I really and I admired you after that and how you handled that, and I think
Agreed.
the whole
Yeah.
world did. And you gained a lot of fans.
Yeah.
Not just.
I
from
just
your
feel
golf.
bad because when everything everybody remembers me from, I made them cry. Like, sorry, I'm really a fun person.
That's good. Okay, and then I got to ask the question:
We're already over it, so you got to get
You
one
gotta
more.
hurry.
This
She's
is
got another.
last one.
Who's the best pickleball player in your family?
Well, me, of course.
Okay.
That didn't
Grant
take
won't listen
long.
to this, right?
And your mom plays well too,
She
right?
does, yeah. We have a lot of really good pickleball players
And
in
it's
our
just a
family.
side game that you picked up. That's
Yeah, mom
diversion.
started us in it all and started getting us paddles for Christmas, subtly pushing us into it. And here we are, true addicts.
Fantastic.
Love
Yeah,
it. So if she's not on a golf course, she's on a pickleball court,
no question.
and she's probably going to beat you in both of them. So
Absolutely.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know we kept you a little longer than we might have promised, but and it still feels like we could talk forever about it all. So again, thank you so much.
Absolutely. This was a pleasure.
And
Thanks
best
for
of
having
luck
me.
going forward.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, what's the
watching.
plan?
Yeah.
Just
Oh, yeah.
real quick, what's your plan this year?
First tournament will be in April in Hawaii, so that's kind of be
Okay.
my kickoff
Nice.
to the season.
It's a good
Excellent.
spot to start.
Absolutely.
A little warmer around
That's
here
right.
too. So, all right, we still have to get some DFS. We're
We'll
going
let
to
Amy
touch
go.
about as quick as we can. It's going to be the longest podcast we've ever had. But no, it's a great show. So again, thank you, Amy, for coming on. And that's Amy Olson now, not Amy Anderson, but Amy Olson. So again, thank you. And we'll be right back after this one. All right, gents, we're back. Ladies and gents, I guess there are gents in the room. Wow, what an interview with Amy. I think it seems like every week we have a guest on, we could go forever, but that one, it legitimately felt like we could go forever. I mean, her experiences on and off the golf course and the type of person she is just fantastic.
Yep.
I just love sitting down and talking with her. It's pretty cool. But moving on, we got golf to play this week. Last week's tournament was a great tournament. Again, like I said, that's when I get the itch. I've got the itch to go play golf now. Torrey Pines. It was a great finish. Had a little bit of everything in there as far as some drama, some come from behind win. Max Homa ends up taking it down. Which was he on your team?
He
Mark?
was on my team. Yes.
Yeah. So nice pick there.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, he was flushing it all week, and John Rahm made it exciting in there too. After was he 1 over 2 over at one point, and then his next two rounds were.
Jeopardy
5,
missing
600.
the cut at one point, but yeah,
he
he
went
battled.
5 under his last 6 holes to make the cut.
Yep.
And then he was in second place going into the last day. I mean, it was like
Let me
this
down
guy
Sunday
never cut.
or Saturday.
Yeah, he did not play.
He was
well
on my
final
team
round.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say, did you guys catch Homa in the live? They had him mic'd up
Yeah.
I saw the replay of it. That's a neat idea.
on Friday, right? Was that Friday?
Friday's
round.
The
Yep.
second to last
Yep.
round.
Trying to make
Yep.
the cut. Yep.
Just how calm he was with it. I mean, I think we talked yesterday about he's probably the perfect guy for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the insight that and they need to pull out the right question, ask the right questions. But it was more about, how is he playing this hole? And it was the
13th hole, par 5.
Par 5.
It's really difficult because it's long, and then the layup's not easy because it's a small fairway. And then you got to go all the way back up the hole. And Max articulated it really well in that, if I go for it, I got to be concerned about where my miss is at, because if you miss in the wrong spot, I mean, all of a sudden you're fighting for bogey.
Right.
And to hear a player kind of walk through that, all while maintaining
That's really
kind
cool.
of a cordial conversation, like a lighthearted conversation about it. That was really cool.
I agree.
I liked what they were doing there.
Yeah. Yep. And it's fun, for listeners out there that play golf. None of us are at the level of that tour player, but to listen to him talk about his miss.
Yep.
It's not about, okay, I'm going to stuff this from I don't know what he had, 250, 260.
Ways. Yep.
I'm not trying to stuff this into the pin. That's a happy coincidence if this ball ends up close to the hole. It's about, where am I hitting this?
Yep.
And he knows his miss, where's this going to end up and leave me for my next shot?
Yep.
Right.
And as you get better in this game, it is about the shot you're hitting, but it's about the leave you have for your next shot.
Mm-hmm.
And even the shot after that, especially if you get in trouble
Yeah.
on the golf course. Okay, how do I get out of trouble, and what does that leave me, instead of trying to be a hero? And because I think I can pull off a shot. Anyways, a little bit of golf theory there on how to play the game another time. But
So my
really
question to you guys, and we're going to broaden this out to past and present, but is there someone on tour that was on tour, right, legend, that you would want to hear mic'd up like that, walk through? Is there someone that just jumps up?
Well, Jack Nicklaus. I think he was the first game manager, and he combined that with power for his era.
Mhm.
I mean, he was powerful, but he also thought his way around the golf course. So it's a simple answer for me. But
Jack, you got anyone in?
Well, the obvious, but I'm taking into account he would never do it, is Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to factor in
He's
the
a might-
likelihood
yeah.
of somebody doing it. Boy, yeah, Jack is solid. I'm just character, fun guy would be like a John Daly or
John Daly would be a good one,
Trevino would be
actually.
fun.
So
Trevino.
that was mine. I was going to say
Oh, I'm
Trevino.
sorry.
Just from the clips I've seen where like hot mics pick him up near tees and
Yeah.
stuff. I think he'd be hilarious.
Yep.
Plus, he's talking about shots where it's all feel based, right?
Mhm.
I mean, shaping the shot and,
Right.
and feeling it. I think that would be phenomenal. But as if you throw that one out, I've seen Jordan Spieth. People
Yeah.
really want to hear Jordan Spieth because he's kind of a mental.
Oh, yeah.
He'll walk.
With just
through
the
everything.
interaction between him and his caddy.
Right. Yeah. Any of those
That's
are
a
gold
show.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a show. You can
Yeah.
definitely have a.
But Homa, I mean, you heard his interaction with his caddy when it
Yeah.
was go time.
Yeah.
They talked through. Amy talked about what a caddy says when they say it, when
Yeah.
they don't say it. To reaffirm what the players talking about. You saw that on that hole
Yeah.
as
Yep.
well when he was mic'd up. It was just there was a lot of interesting. I'd totally watch that 15 minutes of
Agreed.
golf coverage again.
Yeah.
I guess, thinking, I'm thinking back, I think Rahm would be an interesting right now. Because that guy goes through the roller coaster of emotions on the course. It'd be fun to hear him and what he's saying. Did you
Yeah,
guys
that
watch
was-
Saturday when he was struggling?
I watched it.
I saw.
Yeah. There was a couple times where he looked like he wanted to break the wedge, but he held back.
That's the old John Rahm.
That's
All right.
Yeah, you let the old John Rahm sneak out of there. But yeah, I'm excited. I hope they implement that a little more. It'd be interesting as you go
Agreed.
course to course, and if you do have a Max Homa on there again,
Yep.
If strategy changes, if you can see a trend,
I tell you what, I know who I'm betting on this weekend when I'm in Vegas for the Masters, Mr. Homa.
Tiger Woods.
I need to look because I think I might have put something on Homa back.
If you
back
did,
in
that's
November.
golden.
That's really good then. Yeah, I don't think I did. I got Rory, who also won in Dubai this last week.
That's awesome.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, so great tournament. So as far as DFS results, gents, Mark, you had the champ. You had Max Homa. That had to count for something, right? What
And
was
I had
it?
John Rahm.
And you had John Rahm. Where's your points total at then?
A measly 347 because I had three players miss the cut. I
Oh,
think
yeah,
Stallings
that'll do
was
it.
thinking about the Masters.
Was it the wrong Stallings playing?
And my Hoffman pick, I'm getting a reputation. My guys played great the first round. He was 4 under 68 the first round. He shot 80 the second round to miss the
You
cut.
got to do some one day
80s.
some dailies.
Yeah, so I'm out 347.
347. Chuck, where you at? You had John Rahm.
I've had 5 of 6 make the cut. I only ended up with 360 though. I had Rahm was my top guy at T7. So 360 LJ.
360.
Yeah.
That leaves me. I had John Rahm. Jason Day was hot, boys.
Yep. That's a good pick.
He ended up hitting it in the water on 18 round 3, which cost me. He was one over that round. But T7. Luke List was respectable. Top. I only had one guy. Will Gordon missed the cut, right? Will.
Mm-hmm. So you and I both had 5 of 6.
Yep. I had 398.50.
Nice.
Makes me the screaming goat of the week.
Well, we had Steve
Oh
Red
yeah,
Eye.
we had a pop in. We got the pop in. Put your
Hang
arm down.
on.
Put your arm
Okay.
down,
Hang
LJ.
on.
Well, I noticed he's not here.
Well, he's working, man.
Okay.
He's got stuff going
All
on.
right. What do you get?
What do we got?
Well, you would think a guy like me would be prepared.
I know
for
what
that.
he has.
I know what he had too. So, what was your total?
More than his. 360.
He was 358.
That's right.
Let's go. Give me
Yeah.
that goat.
Hey, third for the new guy's not bad.
358.
He got beat by a couple deacons.
go.
So we appreciate Stephen coming on the show.
Not
The
bad
deal-
for a first
timer.
attempt.
If he did win, we were going to invite him back, but the chair is empty.
Chair is empty. I've got the goat. Mark's in last place again. That's tough.
We used to keep a running total of wins. I think
I've-
I've got 5 or 6.
I've got 2 with a goat.
Yeah.
So I think I've got 3 now because I've got
Okay, we're gonna give you 3.
yeah, because I won
Mark?
the first one. I know.
I have
Crickets.
since when did we start keeping track?
Crickets.
That's-
All right,
that
here we go.
one's
This
tough.
is your week.
Yep.
Pebbles,
it.
this is your week. Look at him over there grinding.
You did say this is the time you get
Yeah.
excited for golf, right?
Let's talk about Pebble, huh?
So it's a 3-course layout. We're back at Pro-Am structure. So we got Pebble, Spyglass, and Monterey Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck kind of goes back. It's tough because shot length. The data is only there for Pebble again.
That's right.
So it is tough to kind of take a analytical approach at it because they are playing the 3 courses. But it is amazing to me because we kind of touched on it a couple weeks ago. Monterey Peninsula, they got hammered by some storms.
They did.
Like Monterey Peninsula, the golf course was actually underwater.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now they're playing a tour event on it.
Yeah. The country club there, one of the holes, there's the beach, the 2-lane highway, and a green. I mean, there's not much separating it from the ocean. Matter of fact, I think there might be one hole that is on the ocean side of the road. So yeah, it just can't afford any high waves.
Yeah, it just got destroyed by some waves, but now they're back and it looks great. I mean, they did a fantastic job. Which kind of comes back to, it's an interesting, because the course they play on the weekend, Pebble Beach, is not the most difficult course. That's not why they're playing it. Spyglass is actually the most difficult, is what I had on there. And Mark, have you played Spyglass?
I have played Spyglass. The first 4 holes kind of lull you into thinking it's going to be a beachside dunesy course, and then they throw you up into every hole. It seems uphill, like a Brainerd course, but more Sasquatchy. I mean, it's like you got to be careful.
Okay.
No,
and I mean the trend at these 3 courses are small greens.
Yep.
Everything's just smaller, and I think it's Spyglass hole 3 that's like the greens as wide as this table.
The front of the par 5, I think it's a par 5. Doesn't matter. No, it's not a par 5. It's a par 4. But the front of that green is not very wide. And to say it's as wide as this table is pretty accurate.
Which they're hosting a tour event there. I mean, it's cool. It's cool.
It's the front of the green, and then it narrows, and then it goes up into a wider. So it's like a hourglass, but the bottom of that hourglass is super small.
Tiny.
And the flag stick was there the day I played it.
Which, if listeners get the opportunity, come on out. We do have Pebble Beach and Spyglass on both Top Tracer and Full Swing simulators. I've been on Full Swing simulators, and they're fantastic. I mean, awesome. Graphics are great.
We should play it.
Boothie and I hammered down the calibrations. They're phenomenal right now. So ton of fun. So that's where my course history is coming from, is my laps around there on the sim.
Okay.
But Chuck, talk about, I mean, course history, tournament history is important on this one, obviously, because again, it's the Pro-Am setup plus just knowing the golf course helps out again with the smaller greens, where to position yourself.
Absolutely.
They are angular golf courses, so you got to have better angles, right? You got to miss it in the right spots.
Yeah, and I think, it's not overly long course. It's 7,000. I think all 3 of them are play around 7,000. So
they play longer than that, but
it brings all players into the mix here, where you don't need the bombers. Hitting fairways, strokes gains off tee is going to be a key stat. Short or wedge players, typically, if it's a wedge fest, so the 100 to 150 is a key stat that I'd be focused on. Hence the hoagie. When you look at strokes gained with wedges, he's top of the list, and that's why he's
so well
he's
here.
defending champ. The other key stat I would look at is strokes gained around the green. Mark, you played the course, but from what I've read is some of the misses, you got to be able to get up and down around these greens, and those that are capable of doing that and gain strokes around the green are going to have a little leg up. And it's POA again. So POA putters. I don't know if that's on just Pebble or if all 3, but they were talking about Pebble this morning being POA.
I think it's probably on the Monterey Country Club. They went through a golf course renovation a few years back, and they probably, when they do that with the greens, it's bent grass greens, and you get rid of the POA for a little while, and then eventually it comes back because the seeds are actually carried on the shoes of players.
Sure.
So that's how it's spread from golf course. So I bet those greens are probably pretty pure yet.
Yep.
But the other 2, because they're older greens, likely have plenty of POA.
Okay.
So getting into it,
you talked about it. My last piece is just really small greens, right? And that stroke gained. I think the key there is hitting fairways. So I'm going to be focused. For me, I'm going to be looking at strokes gained off tee.
Yeah. And getting into it, it is a weaker field than previous years. I think Dubai's getting a lot of draw right now. And so they lost some players over there, but you're looking at 1 top 10 player, 3 top 20s, and 10 top 50s, which is down from last year a little bit. But the one player that's making some noise, Jordan Spieth's going to be back. If you guys remember last year, he did the death-defying stunt of a golf swing
on the ledge.
Is that 8
Yep.
at Pebble?
Yep.
Yeah, that scares me when I see him now from some of the angles that they show that.
Yeah, I mean that's for a golf shot.
I don't do well with heights in general, like a ladder and things like that. I do remember that hole where I made sure that I went straight back to the cart path.
Cart path only on that hole.
I mean, I hit my shot. I wasn't anywhere near that cliff.
Yep.
But I knew enough that, they have had people, this was back in the day, drive off that cliff.
Oh my goodness.
In a cart. I think they unfortunately did have some folks lose their lives. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I recognized that was an area that could cause my demise, and I stayed far away from it. So from him to play a golf shot from there, that's crazy.
He made par. He didn't even make birdie. But he's back.
Yep.
I got Tom Hoagie's back, reigning champ. Seamus Power's making some noise. A lot of people are liking Seamus back in the mix.
He was the 36-hole leader last year.
That's right.
And then he had a kind of ended up top 25, but he was the leader. He's got game for it.
Yep. And then kind of a dark horse was this David Lipsky, who played well earlier in this season. He didn't play well last week, but they're looking for a bounce back. He plays well on these similar courses. So that was kind of a dark horse pick for the tournament. Chuck, I don't know. I'm probably missing a few things in there, but
I think, I always like to look at who they got marked in that Davey and DraftKings as the top tier 10,000 and above, or 10,000. Yeah, 10,000 above. There's only 4 this week, which is odd. I mean, usually, and that speaks to the talent pool, if you will.
Right.
Those are going to be the most owned, because that's where people they see it as the winners, if you will. Those guys are most likely to win the tournament. So I focus on it. Okay, if there's only 4, who's going to be the highest owned? And you got Spieth top, Victor Hovland, Fitzpatrick, and then Hoagie in that order. I think most people know name, so they're going to go Spieth. Then they know Victor. I think Fitzpatrick's sneaky. I'm going to put my stock in him and Hoagie. That's how I'm doing my deal. I think of the 4 names there, yes, people are going to look and go, oh, Hoagie won here before. But from a name recognition, Spieth and Hovland, I think people are going to be all over that. So I'm going to go the other route and go Fitzpatrick, Hoagie in that deal. Not to tip my hand on my lineup, but that's where I'm starting on the 10K.
Do you have both of them on your roster? Ooh,
yep.
2 heavy hitters.
I think one of those 4 is going to win this. I'm going to try to go with those 2 guys.
That's a heavy lineup there.
I think Fitzpatrick might be the best player in the field, and he's 3rd most expensive.
Yep.
All right.
Anyway.
Well, before we get into yours, because I am the reigning screaming goat.
Oh, yeah, you get to go.
I'll go first, so I get mine. So I'm gonna jump on Tom Hoagie, and basically my overall theme this week was cut makers, with it being a 3-day cut instead of the 2-day, and course history. So I'm leaning on Tom Hoagie, 10,000. He had a week off, so he's gonna be well rested going into his defense here. Then I went with Ben Griffin, who had a great week last week. He's up at 8,600 now, which I think is up from other rounds he's played in. I did pick up on the dark horse of David Lipsky. I think he's a value pick at 8,200, and he does fit a lot of the models as far as strokes gained off the tee approach, and recent form. And then another guy, he actually rounded out my budget as I was doing it, but Trey Mullinax. And a fun fact about him is he has not missed the cut here in 5 years.
Is that right?
It's good. Fact.
What's his value? What's he?
He's at 8,100.
Okay.
So he's been playing okay, and then he's never missed the cut here. And then Russell Knox, I got at 7,500 as a cut maker, and Grayson Sigg is another cut maker at 75, or I didn't even write him down. What is he? 7,300. He's playing better. He's played in recent tournaments, and he likes to make some cuts. So
yep, I've had him in my lineup a couple weeks ago. He is a cut maker.
Locked him in. That's my lineup.
I like that.
I believe you're up next, Chuck.
All right. So you heard my first two. I'm going to go a little stars and scrub, as they call it. So
Mhm.
a couple top guys, and then I had to find value. So I'm going Fitzpatrick as my top guy. And then I got Hoagie. Then I've got to find some value. So I'm going to go Mr. Tway.
Tway.
Yeah. So if you go
How value
Kevin Tway, he's played the last 2 weeks and he's made the cut both weeks.
Okay.
He's made 4 straight cuts, and he tends to play a little better on the West Coast than anywhere else. So he finished T18 last week in the Farmers.
Oh, nice.
So I'm going to bank on just
Nice.
a little bit of
What's
momentum.
his value?
6,900.
Oh, good pick up there.
Thank you. Then one guy that was injured and is making a little recovery is Lanto Griffin. You
Oh,
guys
sure.
remember last year?
Great band from the 80s.
He had a he played last week, first back. He finished T37, shaking off rust. So I'm going to bank on him
He's gonna
coming
keep
back into
improving.
form. Yep. Nick Taylor. It's another guy. He's got course history here, strong course history. He likes West Coast. He's made 3 cuts in a row. And then my last guy, I had Higo, but I like the SIG call.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm going to pivot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna piggyback off of your idea there, and you did a little more research on cut makers. What was his course history on this one, though? Had he played here?
I hadn't seen that one. Let me pull him up here. Oh, I just deselected him. How's that sound?
You know what? I'm gonna stay true to myself. I'm gonna stay with Mr. Higo. Forget it. Higo's a cut maker too. I like what I see there. He finished last week T50, but the week before that T11. So there's my team, guys.
All right.
I like that. So your value picks you were looking at, and they played well lately.
Yeah, that's
Recent
what I'm
last
banking on.
Recent form.
Yep.
Recent form,
Yep.
value picks.
That's what I'm going with.
Okay.
Only so I can afford the 2 guys that I think one of them is winning this thing.
Okay.
I like the Fitzpatrick pick, actually. I think he's going to play well.
You know what I'm really excited about? The fact that my guy that's going to win this tournament, you guys don't have on your teams. Either one of them.
You got
Did you-
Victor.
I have the winner. And I'm going to go on a streak where I'm going to pick the winner each week.
Oh, I like this.
So,
All right. You're
Homa last week,
Yep.
Yep, you're right. Can't argue with that.
Maverick McNeely
This is your winner?
is winning Pebble Beach.
What's his value?
He's a Stanford guy,
9 something.
9,600. He played well
Mhm.
last year. He was in the mix. He's been in the mix multiple years at Pebble, and he
Mhm.
just hasn't finished it off on a Sunday.
Mhm.
I
I like
predict
it.
this is his year.
Okay.
All right.
Maverick
Clip it.
McNeely.
Here we go.
All right. And then I also had Hoagie. I just, defending champion.
Yep.
Be surprised if there's not some success. I went with Kisner.
Yeah.
Kevin
Kevin's in.
Kisner.
Nice. Bulldog.
He is a bulldog. He's got course experience there. He's been there before. Another guy that's a bulldog, Brian Gay, 6,500 value pick. The guy, he's a 17 of 18 cuts made. He's had 6 top 10s.
Okay.
Are you kidding me? Brian Gay.
Wow. All right.
Yep. And he's played there a ton.
Okay.
A ton.
All right.
And then for my 2, I'll say a flyer, but is it Detry?
Dietrich, my guy,
Detry.
Thomas.
Yeah.
Is he on your
True.
team?
No, that's who
Okay.
I've been running with. That guy, he's solid.
He's got 5 top 10s.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. He's
All right.
been on my team
What's
for the
his
last 4
price?
weeks.
8,800.
Yeah.
So he's not cheap. And then this guy played well last week at Torrey, but he had a crummy. He was in the final pairing. I had never heard of him before. Goya. Goya. Goya.
He's in the final pairing.
I think he was. Maybe not final pairing.
No,
Okay,
it's
maybe he wasn't. No,
Ryder-
that was
it
wrong. Yeah,
Ryder,
Ryder.
Rom, and female, maybe.
Anyways, he's Argentinian, I
Okay.
believe, and he held himself together. He didn't play well that final day at Torrey, but he played great for 3 days previous. He seems hungry to me. He's in good form, other than he had a bad final day. I think he's going to parlay that into some good golf this week, and he was only 6,600.
Oh, okay.
So I talked myself into
Alright.
that guy. But he had for sure it was a top 10 finish. Well, maybe not top 10 last week.
Click on his name. You can see exactly where he finished. Just click on
Oh.
the symbol or his name and then go over to
course log or
There you go.
yeah.
Game
there
log.
you go.
Oh, here you go. Farmers Open.
Might explain.
He's
why
never
he's last.
never used the app before.
Oh, he shot. Oh. He went 79-76 on the weekend.
Final pairing.
53rd.
I mean, first.
I might
guys
have.
out.
First off,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
first
might
off.
be confused with a different guy.
Yeah. Oh,
No, love
goodness.
your
Yeah,
volley
no,
pick.
good luck.
Yeah.
Well, he did play well the first 2 rounds, including a 67 on the South course.
Oh boy.
Great googly
All
moogly.
right, fact checked right on the show here.
Well,
All
there-
right.
well,
So
now that he knows how to work the app, he's going to be solid.
Oh, you press that button for more information.
all right.
Okay.
I
Good
did
luck,
get the
boys.
Argentinian right, though. He is from
You got that part
Argentina.
right.
You read the
I
flag.
got that going for you. Well, those are some solid lineups. Again, I'm excited. This is always a great tournament to watch as well. You get the celebrities in the mix, a little bit of everything in there. So this will be some good golf to watch. Back to
Mhm.
normal Thursday through Sunday.
On some daily plays,
Yep.
historically, Pebble, I think, will play the easiest, or maybe the
Monterey.
Monterey plays
Monterey,
the
yep.
easiest.
Yeah.
So stay away from guys playing Spyglass for sure.
Spyglass is the toughest. So yeah, dailies stay away from Spyglass.
How about morning versus afternoon tees? Does the wind, what's that do out there? Does it tend to pick up in the afternoons, or is that just watch the weather?
I'm not familiar with that. Yeah, I'd watch
Okay.
the weather.
It's not like Torrey where it seems like it's okay. Watch the weather.
That I know. Yeah, I mean that's all good things here. Again, we're running up on our 25-minute mark. This has been a great show. So, good luck to you boys.
Yeah, back at you. Congrats on the goat.
Thanks. We'll hope to keep it this week. Mark's going for back-to-back champs. We'll see if that
I
works.
like
out.
it, Mav.
Tune in next week. Next week's gonna be our 18th show, our 18th hole. So we're hoping to have something lined up here. And best of luck to you out on the courses. We'll see you guys next week.